Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers, today we have a special guest on. And before we introduce him, I'm going to introduce our stand-up panel, and then we'll introduce our guest, and then inshallah we'll go into the podcast. So, our esteemed scholars, we have on the screen below me is Molana Sajid, who is the head of the Paradise Academy, which is situated in Masjid al-Umar, and he's also the Imam of Masjid al-Umar. Next to him is Mufti Amjad, who is the head of the Olive Foundation and the Olive Primary and Secondary Schools. So, mashallah, who's a regular panelist here. And then we have next to me Dr. Waqas, who's a medical doctor, and mashallah, gives us vital info. We also did have, just a second ago, our brother Naz, who should be reappearing very shortly, who is the director of an organization called Consequences, who shares the experiences about what criminal life is behind bars and stuff leading up to that. Now, the organization has done a lot of work with our Paradise Academy, which is located at Masjid al-Umar. So I'm going to hand over to Molana Sajid, who has been doing a lot of work with this organization and our youth. Molana Sajid, you just want to give us a brief introduction of some of the work that the organization has done with us?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, Jazakallah for introducing me to this panel, mashallah, with such esteemed guests, especially one on my right hand side. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, all you guys, for all your hard efforts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sab your khidmat of deen. Mashallah, brother Naz is a local boy. He lives opposite the masjid. He's been through the tough life himself, and I think he'll talk about his experiences himself. I think he was involved in the drugs, and he got caught, he got locked up, and he spent his time in jail. After coming out, he realized, wait a minute, a lot of people, especially here in Bradford, are going down the same route. So I've got to make a change. So he set up this organization called Consequences. So basically, if you do a crime, you're going to face the consequences. And it's hard hitting, his presentations, what the work that he does, but sometimes it's reality. One example that he did even last year or year before was in Lawcroft House. He'll take the students to the police station so they see what a cell looks like, what it's like to be in a police station. Then he walked around Girlington, where people have been shot in the past, and then talk about, you know, what it's like to get shot and what happens, what effects happens on the family. With those, what we did was about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, he had some funding, and the Girlington Community Centre, he set the upstairs hall. One room was a courtroom, the other room was a cell, and so he did a whole reacting of the whole scenario of somebody going through court, and then he's getting sentenced, and then he goes to jail. So we took our Hafizka students, the older students, and so they sat in the courtroom, and he acted the whole thing out. And okay, you're sentenced now, you're going to prison, and then this is what prison looks like. And then even he had all the uniform, the food, whatever else, prison life, and we went through the whole thing. Then we went into the cell, and when the kids went to the cell, they were like shocked. Whoa, you know, just one toilet, one bed. Then they said, that's not it. You haven't seen your roommate. And then a big lad come walking in, and he scared everybody there. He was here, and so they were like, at the end of it, they were all like, you know, whoa, you know, this is not nice, and I don't want to go down this time. And so what we did it for the girls as well at the madrasa. So he had some sisters that organized that, and they did the whole same scenario with the girls. What we did was the following Ramadan, upstairs hall, he did a PowerPoint presentation about jails and prisons, and the different category of prisons, and when you get sentenced, what life is like. And I remember a lot of our elders were in that program after Asr, and they were like shocked. Wow, you know, this is hard hitting, but this is a guy who's been there, done it, and now he's teaching people, please don't go down this slippery slope. Like if you, me, or Mufti Amjad or Dr. Saab or Babar, if we talk about life in prison, people will say, wait a minute, you know, you guys haven't been to prison, what do you know? But this is a guy that's been there, done it, and that's why to have somebody like him to talk about his experience. I think that's why this program today is called Consequences. I think the full title was Consequences of the Crime. So the thing is, inshallah, he'll talk about his experience. I think in the meantime, I think we've
I was
just
just
lost.
gonna ask. Oh yeah, we just lost him, but so I was gonna ask Mufti Saab. So Mufti Saab,
Baba, what I'll do is I'll just quickly leave the studio and contact him and try
I'll
to
take you. You stay where you are, Molana Saab. I'll just remove you from the stream, and then you can go do what you need to do, and then
okay.
just message me when you come back on. Mashallah. So Mufti Saab, I want to ask. So you deal a lot with the community, and especially where your madrasa is located up in the BD3 area. So up in that area, it seems to be a hotspot for crime as well. So what are some of the crimes that we're seeing our community perpetrate as regular, and what comes across on, so to speak, your desk?
نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد. We're going to try to keep this as positive as we can. Obviously, we're keeping the whole theme positive. We're looking for solutions. We're not necessarily looking at problems and getting in that kind of whirlpool of negativity. But I think we need to be realistic as well. So we need to kind of map out the challenges that we face, and then inshallah ta'ala find ways to overcome them. Very much so, the sort of 6-7 points that we've spoke about in the last podcast, maybe 2 or 3 of them in particular, we spoke about dysfunctionality, we spoke about lack of communication, we spoke about identity. And these and many other factors, which others panelists have mentioned as well, is unfortunately the result is where we find ourselves in now. Lack of financial support, also from the local government and also from the main government has also impacted. Lack of employment opportunities, and we're not the only ones who are going to cry about that here in Bradford. The North has suffered, Liverpool, Newcastle, Manchester in places. The whole of the North has been hit really badly. Really, to be honest, after the 60s, 70s onwards, when the kind of woolen industry started to slowly die down, and its impact started to die down. So we've been hit, and no other type of economy has stepped in. No big organizations have stepped in. So again, like I said, we talked about takeaways. Why are there so many takeaways? Because that's really what people can get into. Cab driving, takeaways, these seem to be literally the career choice of young person growing up in Bradford. And it's not a very attractive career choice. It means long hours, silly hours, and very little pay in return. So instead of then looking at, we have there, mashallah, our brother Abu Lihya, instead of taking up those kind of steps where he dedicates himself to literally 15 years of study, and quite intensive study as well, and at a very high level of study. Instead, we want to make a quick book, not a quick book, but a quick book, not the kitab version, but the money version. So we want to make money very, very quickly. No one wants to commit 15 years and then do long hours. Like again, Dr. Waqas will be doing long hours. He does a junior doctor, probably still doing relatively long hours, lack of sleep, running around. It's a hard life. Yes, it's financially rewarding, and not also financially rewarding. It's also doing something for the community with the right intentions. A person will get ajr for it. But that's fair. That's few and far between that we've got people like Waqas, who's alhamdulillah coming from a background and a family. Sorry to kind of mention this in front of him, so to speak, but it's just more to give him as an example. People can see him, people know him in the local masjid community. He had a good family basis around him. He had a lot of support mechanisms around him, which allowed him to do that. But that dysfunctionality, that get rich quick scheme, it's a hard thing to fight against. When you're pulling up in a Beamer, huge car, fancy plates and fancy car with music in it, and you're 21 years old, 22 years old, you have to put a cushion under it to reach to the steering wheel and the rest of it, and your face looks so young. It's very attractive. If I was a 12, 13-year-old and I look at that and I think, wow, I look at Dr. Waqas and I think, okay, 15 years, wow, okay, 15 minutes, for me, 15 minutes is a risk I'm willing to take. Putting myself in a 12-year-old shoes. And when this person's going to give me £20, £30 just to go from A to B to drop something off, when am I going to get 20, 30, 40 pounds from as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old? I can buy those trainers that I want. I can look good on the street. I can get the rep. We've also talked about peer groups. And, Waqas might have been competing with people getting A-levels. Waqas might have been competing with people getting degrees. Well, I'm not competing with things like that. I'm competing with people who are going to look good on the street, who got a street rep, who look good on the street. People respect them. People, oh, have you heard about, Sizzy and, Kabzi and whatever. Wow, man, they did them boys over, whatever. That's the respect that we're after, unfortunately. Unless we change the peer groups, unless we change what is considered as respectful, again, we spoke about social respect, then we're going to be stuck in this quagmire. And BD3, I don't, for me, it's my second home, and someone will argue it's actually my first home, because the one I'm in now, Bradford 8, is when I just come to rest my head on the pillow. And BD3 has its issues, like every inner city issue. And, you're talking about drugs, you're talking about gang violence, you're talking about robberies. There's like 2 or 3 murders that have taken place within, 3 minutes walking distance of our madrasa. So, when you're growing in the suburbs, you're not, exposed to this. When I was growing up in Manningham, we were exposed to prostitution. We were exposed to drugs. We were exposed to so many things as young men, in our early teens that, society as a whole weren't being exposed to. So, the school I used to go to, Hanson Upper School, the stories I could tell compared to the stories my white peers, and there's a sizable Sikh community that used to attend Hanson Upper back in the day. The stories that we could share, they were like thinking, where do you actually grow up, in the Bronx or something? So unfortunately, the exposure that we have, the peer groups that we have, what is considered success, the quick rich, the lack of aspirations, the lack of motivation, the lack of support at home, the dysfunctionality of home. Family for us is the street and the boys. Family is not mom, dad, and brother and sister. Family is the boys. The boys have got our back. The boys are the ones who look out for us. Mom, dad just shout at us and tell us off, whatever. These are your real crew. It's a big, big, big issue, a big mess. Babar, I know I haven't given you any solutions, because originally I wanted to give you the what we're up against. And I unfortunately, we sometimes as a community, and we claim to be community leaders, we stick our head in the sand and we don't know the reality. And this is only a tip of the reality. Just again, stone's throw from where I live, on the Lower Westfield, a brother that I'm sure these Satis will know, Abdulaziz Bhai, outside his garage, car pulls up in broad daylight we're talking about here. 5 guys get out of the car with metal bars, lamping the guy, okay? The guy is stood up, he's taking at least 8, 9, 10 hits. He falls over a wall, they go over and they carry on. There's no rahmat, there's no, women. I think we've done the job, we made the point. I think the chap is in a coma right now. Will he recover? Inshallah, he may.
Inshallah.
Will his life be the same? Absolutely not. Now, Allah knows best what it's over. I'm not going to get into that. But the point of the matter is, you imagine how you, Babar, walking with your kid, your son or your daughter, holding their hand, going into, I think it's Nafi Sweet Center, whatever it's called, directly opposite, trying to get some kids, some sweets for the kids, or some, cakes or whatever. Maybe you're ordering a cake for Eid or something, and you witness that. Can you ever take that exposure away from your children? You can never take that level of violence. You can never take that level of violence away from their eyes, what they just witnessed. As much as you raise them in an environment at home, as much as you can nurture them. And this is the other thing, is the exposure. And, I made a very, very difficult decision. I used to live in Hanover Square, and then I used to live on Queens Road. And when my children were growing up, because I know the difficulties when I was growing up and my peer group faced, my friends that I faced, and some of my friends went behind bars. So my friends are on the other side of the law. So my friends, alhamdulillah, gone the other way. And I saw what was there and available for young people. I didn't want the same choices that my son had to make. My son, alhamdulillah, is now 19. I didn't want him to be exposed to that kind of same level. So we've kind of moved a little bit out of the immediate kind of city a little bit. Yes, it has its sacrifices, but you got to look at your family, and your family's priority. For me, I'm responsible for my kids, and I got to make sure that they're not exposed to the sorts of things I was exposed to. Alhamdulillah, I was fortunate. Allah's mercy is great. I will never be able to express my gratitude to Allah for providing me the guidance and providing me the opportunities given me. But that's not the case for everybody. So we got to make those steps. So I wanted to be quite frank and say it raw, so to speak. So,
MashaAllah.
So,
and I think we got powerful message there, Mufti Sahab, from your upbringing and some of the stuff that you always try to protect your family against. when they were bringing up. I'd like to just quickly go to Dr. Saab. So Mufti Saab touched on there, and he touched on some of the. So I know we're talking about consequences of crime, but we could also link that in. And Mufti Saab was also talking about being positive. There's consequences of education, and Mufti Saab obviously talked about yesterday where his father brought him into the mill and showed him the work he was doing, and then he asked him afterwards, "But do you want to do this?" And Mufti Saab was like, "No, I don't want to be anywhere near this." So, what kind of drove you to the education route that you took? As in, becoming a medical doctor is a big undertaking. So, what were some of your driving factors to actually, what? In the society we live in, all of us have this choice. And I remember going back to one of my teachers. At one point, he singled me out in the class. It was a class of white, and he singled me out. He said, "You're going to have a choice, Baba: the easy route of crime, or you're going to have to work hard. You pick." And I still remember that as a really profound sort of question. I'm like, what? And I wasn't anyone who had considered crime. I was too scared of my dad. But it was one of them things where, I was like, wow, that's a profound thing. So, Dr. Saab, a question to you is, when you were undertaking it, so what was some of the driving factors to say, actually, I have got this choice and I want to use this one?
I think, Jazakallah Babar, for inviting me on, and Assalamu alaikum to both of you and Mufti Saab as well, and to our audience. I think Mufti Saab pretty much described it quite well. He knows me quite well, alhamdulillah, for so many years. And there's been, the biggest factor I've had is the influences in my life, throughout my life, alhamdulillah. The two main factors, people in terms of influences and factors who have made a positive influence on my life are, of course, my parents. So both my parents have undertaken an active role, not just in my life, but in the life of my siblings as well, my brothers, and then those people who are immediately affected by that as well, for my inner family. So from a young age, my mother was my first school, in that sense, and I've spoken about this at length. And the reason why I keep trying to allude to this is that if the parents have an active role in their children's upbringing, then we would want to hope that that would have a positive influence. Obviously, you can't guarantee things 100%, but you would hope that that would have a positive influence. So my mother, I learned how to read and write from my mother. I learned my basic Arabic, my nazara from my mother, my du'as from my mother. I learned how to pray from both my mother and my father. So the du'as and stuff my mother would teach me, and the practical aspect of it was obviously by my father. My father literally used to take us to the mosque and bring us together to the mosque as a family. At that time, there's only a year difference between my elder brother and I. So we're pretty much the same in that sense. We used to both
you said that, Waqas, that at that time there was a year's difference between you and your brother. So now you've separated further. Is he like a lot older than you now, or?
Maybe I articulated that wrong. I said there's a year's difference, and maybe the word that slipped out. It's one of those Freudian slips or something. I feel that he's a lot older than me, but yes, I do feel he is a lot older than I am. In terms of the day of his birthday I stamped on my birth certificate and his birth certificate, there's approximately.
It's still the same. Okay, so he hasn't changed then. It hasn't changed. So you were a year different then, and you're a year different now. I just want to clarify that in case our audience members get a bit confused.
But if you look at us, alhamdulillah, he's like one of those evergreen trees. He doesn't age.
MashaAllah.
He still looks very youthful compared to me, and I suppose the length of the beard has got a factor to play with it. My beard is a lot longer than his beard, and he actually generally looks quite young, alhamdulillah. And I know we're sidetracking, so we'll come back.
Yeah. We'll come back to it. Yeah.
That was basically, so by the time I even went to school, before I even went to school, and Girlington Primary was my primary school, and before that I was in I think before that I was in Lillycroft. I think that was nursery or something. So Lillycroft was my nursery. I don't know what it's called to be honest now. It was just Lillycroft school, and Lillycroft like the Lister Fisheries, or close to Lister Fisheries. And then primary school was Girlington Primary School. I had already the stuff they taught me in primary school, I had already learned at home. I had to learn these things. And so in terms of the question, to answer directly the question that you're saying, what drove me, it's that upbringing coupled with positive influences throughout my life, and then being put in situations where all I see is those people trying to attain those things. So I was in schools, or the schools I was mainly in, was where people were pushed by their parents or were encouraged by their parents to try and achieve some sort of qualification in the GCSEs and A levels, and thereafter obviously to pursue a university degree. And then after school, we used to go to maktabs and madrasas, and I used to have the positive influence of having the scholars of Islam always encourage us
mashallah.
to do those. So I was always in that surroundings really. So my only interaction with those outside of those surroundings was really just on I think on a weekend, and even then it was just basically the people whom were in my back street in eyesight distance of my home and where my mother and father could see where I was. And if we ever, I used to remember as a kid that even now to a certain degree that if we ever were going to go somewhere, then my father would ask, okay, and it'd be a weekend, where are you guys going? And we're going to play football. Where are you going to play football? Scotchman Road. Okay, what time you're leaving now? It's at 4 p.m. for example. How long is your football game? Okay, 6 p.m. You should be back 6 p.m. Is that what you're telling me? Yes, I'll be back at 6 p.m. And my father would always just throw this in. He never acted upon it, subhanAllah, but he would just throw it. He goes, in case I happen to travel by Scotchman Road on that field and it's 5:15 or 5 o'clock and you're not there, what should I expect? What should I do? And we would always say, look, if it's between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., we will be playing football up there. If, however, we are not there, the only place we're going to go is on the way. So we're going to go that way. This is the route we're going to take to Scotland, and this is the route we're going to come back. There's a shop on the way.
Mashallah.
We might stop in the shop to get a drink or something, but that's the only place we're going to go. And if we're going to change route, we'll let you know. And
Mashallah.
he never obviously came to obviously I don't know in a bad way spy on us, but it was just in our minds that look, if we do something, or if we go straight away somewhere, my father's always there to inquire where we are, and I think that's what it is. And I think the main thing is having positive influences in your life. And like I said, the main positive influences in my life were my first in the first case were my parents, and thereafter were the scholars whom I sought guidance from in maktabs and madrasas. And of course the teachers have positive influence. I mean, you've alluded to that as well in schools and in any sort of education background. So the schools, they always encourage you to try and excel, and if they see some sort of potential, if the person is, I know, showing some potential either in mathematics or English, they'll encourage that person. And all of the schools have great teachers, I believe, and some are very good. Some are better than others in encouraging their students to do excel in certain fields. And I think that's basically the gist of how I got. And the environment of where a person is helps tremendously. And this is what Mufti was alluding to as well. He was in an environment where he felt his children may have not had a better outlook in terms of the future, and so he moved from that environment and he moved to his current residence, where he feels that it's a better environment for himself and his family. And alhamdulillah, Allah can protect all of our children and all of our families from the evils of the society that we're in, and make us stronger people out of that. I mean,
Mashallah. So I just wanted to see if Naz can hear us. It doesn't look like he can yet. So, Molana Sahab, I want to go to you. So, from what we were talking about, our introduction to, and I know Dr. Sahab alludes to how his parents taught him the religion first, and how that was a big influence in his life. But so, talking about the education, as in the standard school system, is one thing. But Molana Sahab, you got this choice of going to learn about Islam and going into that field where the religion is a big part of your study. So what was that choice like, and how was that made, Molana Sahab?
Well, with myself, what happened was I completed my GCSEs. After completing my GCSEs, I went to a mixed high school. Then my dad said, go for 40-day Jamaat. And so I went to 40 days. We went to Brighton and London. And that was the first time me coming out of a small town. Remember, our mentality was the only Muslim were Pakistanis and Bengalis, because there were only about 40, 50 houses in Rottenstall. And so the thing was, when I went on Jamaat, the first thing, after 3 days, we went up to Lane Masjid in London, and we had a white person come in and accept Islam. Then in every mosque in London, you had a mixture of colors and background. So it's like, wow, this is amazing. Islam is so vast. So it taught me lots of things. We went to Brighton, Southampton, along the south coast, and we learned many things. And I learned one thing was we went to Brighton, and when we were in next door to Brighton was a place called Poole, and those there was no mobile phone, so we had to look in the directory for names. So we found a brother called Ibrahim. So we went to his house, knocked on the door, and an English woman, old lady, came out. So we said, "Can we speak to Ibrahim?" And so she said, "Yeah, call him." So he came to the door and said, "I'm no longer Muslim. Get out." And they shut the door on our face. I thought, whoa, I saw people come into Islam, and I've seen people leave Islam. And I thought, whoa. So after that, when I came back to my locality, my Amir Sahib, my teacher at that time, he said, "You've got to make a lot of effort in your community." And I remember day and night I used to give dawat, and that's what I was gone crazy in this. And then I went to high school, went into college, and for the environment, it was just like it wasn't right for me then. And I said to my dad, "Look, I want to go to the I want to study. I want to see knowledge." And coincidentally, my mom, she suffered an angina attack, and she was admitted to Bury Hospital. And the Sheikh Hadith, my Ustad Molana Hashim Sahib, his wife was also in hospital, and they're both next to each other. So when I went to see my mom, so she asked, "What does your son do?" He goes, "Oh, he's just going to college." And so then she goes, "Does he want to seek knowledge?" And he goes, "Yeah, he like to. He just come back from Jamaat." And so he said, "Tell him come on Monday morning, and he'll get dakhila." So without any, I just got into Darul Berry, and the rest they say is history. So the thing is, alhamdulillah, we got those opportunities. But like I said, like Mufti Sahib, everybody here, we see what happens on our streets, and we see the good and the bad. And the thing is, as Muslims, we've got to have concern for everybody, especially what's happening on our streets, especially our youngsters. And I remember about 8, 9 years ago, I had a mother come crying, and when she came and she goes, "Ustaji, my 9-year-old son has been approached by, to be a middleman to pass on drugs."
Oh wow.
And he's going to get paid 10, 20 pounds or something at that time. And so, and she's crying to me, and I was like, whoa, what do I? And the kid was coming to the mosque, and he was only 9-year-old. And so then you learn that little kids are utilized in passing on this stuff. And so you read that there's a lot of good going on, but there's a lot of bad as well. And we've got to give opportunities to our kids, especially the youngsters. Unfortunately, the people that have gone, they've gone. It's hard to bring them back. And I know one of our relatives, he's quite badly into this. And to talk about Deen, it's way above his head. You understand? And but we try to still keep him connected, but sometimes it's very difficult. But what we can do is the next generation, or the kids that we have, we've got to protect them from the illness of this, of the bad of the community. And what we could do is raise awareness of the dangers that's around. And I think that's what we try to promote here at Masjid Umar, is that, look, Masha, you've got the mosque, you've got the good mahal, but at the same time, there's the bad out there as well. And you've got to be aware of these things. And obviously, age appropriate, we then teach them these things. And no, it's all about education. It's all about being aware, because remember, we talked about these things. It's temptation, it's desires, it's those things that pull you. Now, a little kid getting £20. I remember talking last month to a person who was a drug dealer in our community, and he was saying a day he was making £1,000. And I said, "So what?" So I go, "You had £5,000, 6,000 a week?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "So what did you do with it?" He goes, "Murtab, the quicker it comes, the quicker it goes." He goes, "You had to get rid of it." So he goes, every day, like, and £200-300 top, £200-300 shoes, and whatever else. And you just we probably don't even make that in a year. You understand? Compared to what they were making a week. And so you just get shocked. But it's a pull now. Now, if there's no opportunity for our people, this is why I always bang on about with the councillors and the MPs. If there's no opportunity for our youngsters, there's no job opportunities, they know they're not going to get good education. Sometimes the schools do let them down. And then where what's going to happen? Obviously, we're going to produce druggies and people that want to be bad boys because they've got no opportunities in life. Yeah, mashallah, they'll come to the mosque and they'll do their namaz, but apart from that, they need a goal, they need a career, they need opportunities. And if the opportunities are closed, then they're going to think, why should I work, 40 hours and get £200 when I can make £200 in an hour or so? So that's the biggest thing, and that's the challenge that we face. But we've got to keep on educating the people that halal risk is the best way, and avoid these temptation desires. Not only will they destroy you, it destroys your families, it destroys your children, it destroys your next generation. And when we see all these fights happen on the street, families against families, but it's all unfortunate. Once you've gone into that, then these are consequences of all the ill effects of the drugs and all that goes with it.
I know, Mufti, we're trying to keep this positive, but one of the things that we
Walaikum
are
salam.
Can we just
For the
get Naz
fifth
on?
time.
Whatever the opportunity we have with him.
Comes out. I can hear echoes. I can't hear echoes.
mashallah. Can you hear us now, though?
Can't hear nothing. Echoes.
Naz, you just talk.
Echoes, yeah, fully echoes.
Just text him to let him know that he should just.
I'll text him. Let me just.
Ask
Baba, if you take me off.
Okay. So, there you go, Molana Sajid. You are off. Yeah. So, I think Naz is gone as well. Yeah. So, Doctor, you can say something?
No, I was just going to say, the running theme seems to be from both the two scholars and myself is that this is probably just my analysis, or maybe I've missed the point, is that unfortunately speaking, the reason why most people fall to crime or go to crime is to make a quick buck, as Mufti Saab said, to make some easy money, quick money, and the value of honest, hard working labor, however little or however great the rewards are not built up within that person for him or her to pursue. So if a person is given the value or shown the value that the honest labor, whether you're getting £50 a week or £5,000 a week, it doesn't matter about the return. The value of doing a hard day's work or hard day's honest work is I don't know, it's incalculable.
There's a couple of themes that are running through the conversation we're having and the experience we're having here and there. So there's obviously being able to go to talk to someone. And I know Molana Sajid there said that a mother came crying to him about his child that got £20 and this idea. But there's an element there where she found out about it. There are other parents who are in denial, right? No, my son's really good. He never do a bad thing in his life. And
I just want to bounce off that a little bit. Is that yes, there is that sort of like casting a blind eye, complete blind eye. Or on the other side is just because the money is rolling in. I mean, how can one? It's illogical. I feel that a person in this day and age, where his child or her child is unemployed, has no source of formal income, is driving around in a car which is worth more than the house. So when the vehicle is worth more than the house, then the parent should question is, where are you getting this money to pay for this vehicle?
But it's not the parents are stupid or don't know to question. It's a lifestyle choice, and unfortunately, the lifestyle choices that we are making as families, whether we're turning a blind eye to our youngsters or even in fact encouraging them, is the lifestyle is we want to be rich. Come what may. We don't care about how we become rich. Why is Molana Sajid dancing?
Just to get Naz to talk. I think he's having difficulty listening to us, but if you could just get him to talk about his experiences. Naz, can you hear me?
I would take that as a normal answer.
Okay,
I think he's having problems with his connection also.
Yeah, so let's leave him. We'll try some other time.
Inshallah.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is these are lifestyle choices. So it's about people wanting to be rich. There was a time when our community didn't look at that. There was a time when, again, it's about social pressures or the way society works. there was a time when, the time I spoke about with, the hours that my father used to do, and I'm sure he's not the only one. He used to work, on certain days, in 2 different places. So, but then, unfortunately, as a community, we changed. We then became very benefit oriented. We then, this sort of over the last 10, 15 years, we've changed as a society. We've become very benefit focused, where our life, we don't look at earning more. We just think, well, what's the point earning more? I can get more as a benefit. So we've gone that way. That's brought this laziness into us. And similarly, then it's leaving this amber light again to our youngsters. We know full well what they're getting involved in, but it brings money home. I will tell you, there are families who are actually money laundering, where they'll take the money that the children are making and have it transported across to Pakistan, and as a result, buy land with it, buy whatever. So, like you were saying, Molana Sajid was saying that, it's easy money comes quick, but it also goes quick. And to substantially have that money in some form, like assets in this country, is obviously going to come after in terms of the police. So this easy route is that it just gets sent across to thinking. So as a community, we've got to be serious if it is something we want to do. But we all go down with the community, and that's the problem. So then we have a choice. Either we go down with the community, because the example that the Prophet of Allah gives is that when you take a "I'm all right, Jack" attitude, then it's like 2 groups of people getting onto a ship. One group of people go onto the ground floor, and the other group of people go onto the top floor. And the people who go up to the top floor say, well, it's none of our business what they do on the ground floor. And the people on the ground floor, the boat level, they're saying it's none of our business what the guys in the top do. Problem is, if these people on the ground floor start to drill holes in the ship, then the whole ship will sink. And that includes the people on the top. So the same thing happens here, is that when we take this kind of attitude towards our community, that, let them do what they want to do. It's not our problem. Then unfortunately it does become our problem, because then it's our son or our daughter that's caught up in it. And then we're crying. But we're saying, well, it's all right now. I'm all right, Jack. It's not my son involved. It's not my daughter involved. Then they get involved. This young lady that got shot in Blackburn, obviously we don't know the specifics as to why she got shot or how she got shot. Supposedly it was an error.
Was it yesterday or the day before something?
Yeah, this young lady called Aya, 19 years old, who was going to train to become a solicitor or something.
Oh, yes.
Now she got shot.
Yeah,
and she got shot, and it was accidentally she got shot. So the thing is that once our society becomes like that, where people can literally shoot people on the street, people can literally just knock a guy senseless with bars, then there's always going to be that. And unfortunately, you either look at that, or you decide, I need to get out of this kind of hole that I'm in. And unfortunately, more and more people are taking that philosophy, because even those places, institutes that are trying to make a change, is becoming very, very, hard work for them. So unfortunately, we are where we are. There's a lot of hard work that needs to go in. I don't want to share prison statistics with you, but the highest minority after, I think, blacks is Pakistani Muslim. I think, in fact, it's probably gone over blacks as well. Now, that's not just by chance. There's something going on in our communities. You're not seeing it from Indian Muslims. You're not seeing it from Indian Sikhs or from Indian Hindus. Unfortunately, in our communities, there is a big problem. And prisons are getting full as a result of it. And then it's hard for us to sit here, on our mimbars, in our, ivory towers, and say, well, in Judaism, there's these problems. In Hindus, there's this problem. In Sikhism, there's this problem. In Christianity, there's this, when we're the ones who are locked up in prison. So there's something not going right. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, religion has a part to play. It does have a part to play. Unfortunately, it's absent. That's the part it has to play. If it was there, then we would also be like the companions. We would also be the envy of the world, like the way the Europeans look towards the Turks, and like the way the Europeans look towards the Arabs, both in Spain and beyond. We were the envy of the world. But once we give up the deen, then we become the beggars of the world. And that's where we are, unfortunately. We are the beggars of the world.
Mashallah. So I just want to try bringing in our guest again. So Naz, can you hear us again? And that would be no.
I think it'd be appropriate if we invite him on another time, inshallah. Maybe
I think we'll just leave him.
And we'll sort the connection out for next time, and then ask Brother Nas to come, and then people can see him as opposed to seeing a blank screen and just hear a voice in his place, like a ghost talking from somewhere. But yes, Barak Rafiq, thank you for your insightful words. do appreciate the sentiment. So I think the obvious question is, we know these are issues that we're having. We know these are problems that we've got within our communities. So how do we tackle them? How do we try and put things right? Or I know certainly yourselves, both of yourselves and yourself, you're both in education. You're both teaching kids, and you're doing a lot of the things. But how can we accelerate this so that we see those results that you shared with us, those statistics, those can start dwindling down from having a representation in the prison system which are practically Muslims. We can just reduce that to a very low or little figure. So, and this is a question to all of us, in fact, not just Mufti himself.
I think the thing is, we keep on saying education. The education comes from the member, it comes from the classrooms, it comes from schools, it comes from everywhere. And I think sometimes you have to accept that there's also life. People have temptations and desires, and you're gonna have people that are gonna murder, the people that are gonna steal, people. These things, yeah, you try to reduce it, you try to control why people are doing these things. But I think the biggest thing is just they want to. That's their desire. That's what they want to do. And the factors that come into this, they're not educated, or they might, they don't have an opportunity, or they might not have a job, and they might think this is an easy way out, and this is a way to go down. But that's why, in a way, we invited Naz to ask him. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us hopefully another time. But it's to ask him these questions, that what provokes people to go down this line. Sometimes asking those guys might not be the right people to ask, and all we can do is prevent.
Well, I just want to apologies for interrupting. I just want to share an experience when I was younger, and obviously it's not as resolute and as deep as what our guests would have told us, but it was an experience nevertheless, and it was a brush with the law. So I think it's worth for the listeners just to share it without too many details, because it is in the past. So at a younger age, there was an issue where I got in trouble with the law, and the reason why I went into that particular, why I got into there, was mainly around peer pressure. I wanted to be the cool kid, right? So I was a quiet kid. Not really. I had my little circle of friends, and that was it. And people used to know me as a tech guy, because even back then I was into technology and I was a geek of the thing. And I was like, I want to be like, there's all these cool kids. I want to be one of these cool kids, right? So I got into some trouble, and suddenly everyone was flocking around me, right? So everyone, I'm the guy who's can do X, Y, and Z and whatever, and that deal that. And at the time, there was nothing of me thinking, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I never thought I could get into trouble. I thought, you know what, I'm going to get away with this for life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to hide here. I'm going to do whatever. And I had all my strategies, right? And then came the day I got caught. Right? And I remember I was still at, we had primary, middle, and upper at that time. I was in middle school, and I got called into the headmaster's office. And this was the first time I'd ever been called into the headmaster's office. Right? And sat there was a police officer. And I remember the feeling in my gut. And my overriding sense was, what's going to happen when my dad finds out? And when my dad finds out, I'm a dead man. I didn't care about this police officer, and if he was going to throw me in jail, or this headmaster, if he was going to do whatever he's going to do, expel me from school. My overriding sense was, when my dad finds out, I'm a dead man. And that was in the back of my mind. And they were like, okay, so what happened? And I made up this whole elaborate story to try getting out of it. And I'm just like, no, it wasn't me. It was like, I was doing this and I was doing this, and I just happened to, and then I was like, you know what? Let's just come out with it. I made enough of it. So I told them all the truth. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to tell your dad. And I'm like, is there a way you can we get over this without telling your dad? And they're like, you're 13. No, we're going to tell your dad. And I'm just like, oh, no. I told you the truth, so we didn't have to go down this route. And then my dad found out. And that experience of sitting in front of my dad and having to tell him what happened was the most terrifying experience of my life. But it was the experience where, you know what I mean? So I was always, alhamdulillah, I was the guy who, a good kid, and I kept within the law. I'd never break a rule at school. And then it was that pressure to try becoming something. I wanted to be the cool kid.
So Baba, what do you do? Skype class?
No, so you can see it though, Barbara. I just want to analyze your situation there. So first of all, you had a father figure, okay? Secondly, that father figure at such a young age, you were only 13, had established himself and established his authority, okay? Thirdly, not only had he established authority in a kind of villainous, tyrannical way, but he'd established his authority as being a man who stands for right and a man who will stand against wrong. Okay, so so these are 3-4 things in that short little clip you shared with us that comes to me clearly. These are absent in the lives of these young men. Not always. Molana Sajid has mentioned a few times where certain people do actually, fathers do apply themselves, but unfortunately, it just works out that way. Other people may disagree, but the point is that having that, a lot of the crime that goes on, amongst blacks in particular, is always labeled as the absent father, the absent father. And when is, and at the moment, alhamdulillah, our sisters are getting married and relationships are going through the halal way. I really worry, a couple of generations down the road when we start having very flexible relationships, and they're happening now. A couple got arrested very recently who just don't live too far from me, and I don't even want to share what they were doing, and they were involved in the rape of a third person, and they were both Muslims, this couple. So what I'm saying is relationships are changing. Once they become more fluid, then the women will have lots of children from different men, and then that's when the absent father figure will come in again. So Waqas asked the question.
Musa, sorry, on your point, the other day I'm watching a clip on YouTube, and is a comedian, he's a dwarf, and he comes on stage, and so he was telling the audience about his upbringing, and his dad said to him that, son, you've got to stand up for yourself. So what, you're a dwarf, you're gonna face many challenges in your life, and you've got to stand up for yourself. And if anybody says anything, you knock them out. Yeah. So that's why the first day he went into school, and a kid picked on him. So it wasn't his fault; it was the other kid's fault. So the kid picked on him. What did this guy do? Knock him out. Yeah. So he's got to headmaster's office, and so the headmasters are really upset with you. What you doing? What you punched this kid for no reason? This, that, the other. So he's explaining. Wait a minute. He began this. He called me something. That's why I retaliated. They go, no, but you punch him. Why do you punch him? And we're gonna call your dad. So they called his dad, and when so his dad's on the phone, and they said, "Oh, your son done this." Well, I'm proud of him. That's why I taught him. I taught him to stand up for himself, because he's gonna get picked on because of his size. So he's standing up for himself. And so, like you're saying, Musab, these principles that our dads used to instill. They weren't just they were in the parents. They were in the police, they were in the community, they were in the teachers. We had role models, our parents, every elder was, chacha there, uncles there. When we had to do a sin, we had to go up in the mountains to do it. We even respected the police officers of the time. Unfortunately, now, again, this is politics as well, because of lack of funding. Police don't have no powers, and that's reality. And when I sit with them in meetings, and sometimes, they overlook some crime because there's no funding available. So that respect, and youngsters are not, oh yeah, I fear the police, I fear the teacher, I fear the thing. Fear doesn't mean a bad thing. Remember, just like we love, I think we've gone too much in this society of love, everything's about love, and we got to do lovey-dovey and everything. There's love, and there's, the hard, where respect as well. And respect comes with, a bit of, toughness as well. And unfortunately, that side of the community has really gone. And because that's gone, people don't have respect for parents, they don't have respect for teachers or stars, police, anybody. And, little kids are swearing at the police people. And, we were taught respect the police, respect elders, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim. And I think these are big factors. And when that, like Baba was scared because he feared his dad, he feared probably his teacher as well. I remember our teacher, Mr. Birch, we were really scared of him. But you know what? He was there for our goodness. He didn't want bad for us. But his strictness helped us. In Darwin, we learned many lessons. Our stars were strict with us because they wanted us to succeed. So the thing is, the strictness and this tough approach has melted away from society, and people now, because it's all about love, nobody disciplining their child, or people are scared to discipline because they say, who are you to tell me? And because of these mentalities, we're having all these ill effects.
So I was going to pick up on. I was going to pick. No. It's a very valid point, Nation. I was going to just pick up on what Waqas said there. You know, what do we do? Because we want to be positive, and I know we're sort of coming to the last sort of 10 minutes of the podcast, and we need to leave the public with a message. At the moment, we're sort of saying Yom Al-Qiyamah is coming, and get ready, basically, which it is. But we also need to, give some practical solutions. Some of the practical solutions I can think of is, obviously, if the people can't come to the masjid, then the masjid needs to go out to the people. So we need to find ways to do more outreach work. And now how we find those ways, that's something for communities to sit together and think of how do we do this outreach work. We know whenever the situation gets difficult for people do reach out. So, even that person who's very far away from being whatever, some difficulty, calamity befalls him, then you find him coming to the masjid or you find him speaking there. So we've got to look for these opportunities. I think as a community, those of us who will try and need to make a stand as best as possible. It is not easy. It is difficult to make a stand because of the repercussions that we could potentially face if you see a drug deal going on right in front of you and you want to shop them to the coppers and then you think someone's going to be smashing my windows, the next day. So, the community itself needs to kind of grow as well. There's many ways you can shop somebody in without necessarily having to give your name or address or anything else like that. So, we should...
Dobbin a dealer, I think, is the channel for the police.
Yeah.
Police. It's an anonymous telephone call where you can just give details, maybe what's going on.
Yeah, and remember, if this was a relatively middle-class white society, then they would have cleaned up, Bradford. Let's face it. You try doing what do you call those thingies?
Neighborhood watch.
Hey?
Do you mean neighborhood watch?
When you're in your car, donuts. You try going into a middle-class white area and try doing donuts in your car. You'd be arrested within 5 minutes. Why? Because you would receive 500 phone calls. You try doing donuts on Girlington Road, and you get probably people watching you and putting it on YouTube. You see the difference in our applause. You see the difference in our societies is that
I think that's sorry to myself to interject. I think that's just testament to inner city life as opposed to suburban life, and it's not so much to differentiate between racial and stuff like that. Because if you go to inner city areas, say in Newcastle, where it's predominantly white English, then they would have the same issues as what we're facing.
But the difference we have is we have the solution, or we claim we have the solution, which is Islam. That's the difference. Whereas yes, we could say inner city Newcastle, inner city Manchester, inner city Liverpool, they don't have a solution. We have the solution, and the only reason why we are in inner city is not necessarily because we can't afford to move out to the suburbs. We've got plenty of money. We're probably the richest community that exists because we've got second homes. Very few people have second homes. We've got second homes. We only stay in these communities because either for the sake of family, because our family is there, or because of local amenities, the butchers or whatever, or the masjid. That's the only reason. So it's not that we're restricted to the inner city because of lack of affluence. We're restricting ourselves to the inner city because of choices we're making. So therefore, we can't even fit in the class bracket either, if that makes sense, which what you're suggesting there.
Mota, on that point, even in the suburbs now, and even in the smaller towns, drugs is a very big issue. And
it's called county.
Before it was like, we used to hear Bradford and the big cities that had these issues, but now like I said again, I refer to Rottenstall. People were telling me, drugs is the norm now. And And
we have Sheikh. We have the solution. Sorry, Baba. We have the solution.
I was going to pick up on a point you said there. So you said that so there's that line code Dobbin a dealer, but within the community there's often a stigmatism that's attached to like I'm not a snitch. Right? Yeah. So I know, like I don't want to ring him. It's got nothing to do with me, and I think that alludes to what you were saying earlier about the whole poor and personal. It's got nothing to do with me. So we should really make the message clear. What we're saying here on the podcast is that that's not an attitude we should take. If someone is doing wrong, and I think there's a prophetic saying, and there's
the hadith,
I think if you can fix it with your hand, I'll let you. I'll let you.
No. Yeah, absolutely, Babar. What you're saying is absolutely spot on, Babar. Yes, thank you for reminding us of the hadith. With your hand, and if you're not with your hand, then with your mouth, and if you're not with your mouth, then the minimum is, and this is the counted as the least form of iman, is to have dislike it in your heart. Now, if you dislike something, you cannot but express it on your face. If I see something I don't like, then I'm going to make a face like that. For me to smile and happily carry on with my business, that's not a dislike. So that's a society that we're supposed to be. But like I said, we like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying on the side of the buses, we say, oh look, mashallah, the non-Muslims are using hadiths. Isn't it a shame that the ones who have it aren't using it, and the ones who don't even believe in it are using it? Isn't there a problem there? To what extent are we Muslim then? To what stage does our iman go? Is it just to the back of this mouth, or does it actually?
Also, the ayat of the Quran that all believers enter Islam fully, I think that's what it is. We've got to understand that, yeah, we're Muslim by name, and the temptation, desire, shaitan, everything, but we've got to resist. This life we keep on to talk is temporary. No matter how much wealth you earn and how much you gain, at the end of the day, it's all left behind. How many times we've seen drug dealers when their janaza happens, or we've seen on YouTube, whatever. They're all the big boys. They're all there. Everybody's there, but nobody can help him in the grave. Nobody's going to help him in the next world. So the thing is, you look at your dunya, look at your akhirah, look at your children. Not only are you destroying yourself, you're destroying your communities around you. And what answer are you going to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You just got to ponder. And sometimes, yeah, you think, you guys are Muslim, you've got the iman, and you're doing this, and how low can we stoop? And why? Because it's temptation and desire. We want this. We want everything. We want cars. We want houses. We want the name. We want the fame. How much you can have? Pharaoh had everything, and at the end, he was calling out to Allah to save him. And the thing is, that's reality. There was nobody bigger than Pharaoh, and we've got to look at reality that gangsters don't go to paradise. That's reality of it. And the Sahabas that changed their lives, they did a full 180, and they were burying their daughters alive. They were little things that they would fall out from. But you know what? When they entered Islam, they entered it fully. They left the behind them, and they went into Islam fully. And then they thought, you know what? This is a new chapter, and let me move on with my life. And that's what you got to do. It's not easy, because again, I'll talk about my own experience. I was talking just a few weeks ago with somebody who's really been to jail, come out, and I said, look, but if you the only way is 100% out of it. There's no other way. But what it is sometimes, bichara, when these guys come out, their friends are waiting like vacuums, and they just put them in, and even inside they've still got the contacts and everything, and it's a whole life they've got to leave behind.
Well, even that, Molana, a lot of those who do go inside realize that they weren't really friends for them, because they're not paying them any visits, their children aren't getting looked after. Then they really realize, hold on, I am alone in this. Actually, I was suddenly someone's boy, and now I'm not to be heard of. And you also spoke about how society is becoming soft. I don't know if you've had experience of going to some of these prisons, and what they say. Some of these prisons it's like a holiday camp. Yeah, holiday camp. You go in there for 2-3 years. You get 5 years. It suddenly gets reduced to 2.5 years, and then if you're best behaved, you're out in a year. Then if you put a tag on, you're out in 6 months. So you've done something which you got 5 years for. In 6 months, you're wandering around the streets, and you think, hold on. And he's still got 150k that he's hidden because he never told the coppers where it was. And all he's going to do is wait for the smoke to die down a little bit, because there's going to be another Abdullah going to get up to something now. He's going to pull out this 150k, and he's buzzing. So he thinks, for 6 months, 150k? My God, I'd do 6 years for 150k.
Plus, most of, at the moment, there's that fear, and there was a program on lately because the anonymous Maggie Khan and some guy from Huddersfield, they were going down, and so now people want to be the top dog now, and there's a competition now happening in Bradford, and lately we just seen he was a former student who was murdered, and the thing is what people will do, how far they'll go, and it's just that name, it's that game, and
it's dunya, isn't it? It's dunya.
It's money, it's dunya, it's name, it's everything, and no matter sometimes how much Melissa, we can only keep on preaching, and we won't stop that. And but sometimes it's up to the person, individual himself, to take responsibility. And sometimes people again they dish, oh, mosque, what are you doing, and this that. Well, mosque are open 365 days a day, 5 days a week with their beyond, with their things, and the nurturing, whatever else. But people need to be responsible. You can't.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said. I'm glad you said that. We get the same kind of thing. Or where are the imams? Where are the imams? Imams are probably the only ones, and I'm not an imam, so I can say this. Imams are probably the only ones who are giving their time freely, for hours on end, for nothing in return. Name any other organization that does that, or the individual that does that. So ulama are overstretched. They're trying their best to do what they can do, but yes, they need the community itself to be on board and not wait for the problem to come home. That's the issue. They think, okay, my son's all right, he's 10 years old, my daughter's all right, she's 12 years old. Suddenly then the problem comes. Now Molisa Kwekalo, now Kwekalo. Then we start to go for these dums and we start to go for these tawiz and whatever, because now the problem's completely gone. So let's go get a tawiz and tie it around his neck and see if we can tighten and eventually kill him.
I think that's that's a good point that you made in terms of the community needs to take ownership of this problem and not hide away from the fact that it's not come to their doorstep. Because the moment, like I think Barbara alluded to, that sometimes we feel we have this sort of like stigma attached to that we shouldn't dob in a dealer, for example. But yes, we should. Albeit that it's not affecting me directly because it's not coming into my house, those drugs. It's affecting my community, which eventually it may come into my house. And my home is also my community. Now, the moment we stand up for these righteous things, the sooner we do this, I feel that there'll be a clampdown. There will be obviously a backlash from those people who are involved in these crimes, and they will obviously not want their shenanigans to stop or to their income to reduce. But we got to stand strong as people, as a community, as Muslims, that we don't want this in our society. The anecdotal story was that a long while ago there was a certain area of Bradford where a lot of prostitution used to happen. But then what did in that local area, they came out in force as people said, we don't want this in our physically in our area. And those people who solicited, they moved away to a different area. So they moved away from one area and went to the other area. And the idea would have been that those people where they went to, those people in that locality should have come out and said, we don't want this in our area, and driven them out completely and maybe just try to find a different solution. But we don't do this. We try and brush the problem under the carpet. We try and pass the buck on to someone else and hide away from doing the hard thing, making changes within oneself, and then having the idea to change in one society requires hard work. Both of you, all three of you guys are aware of how much hard work is involved in trying to make a change about not just in one person, but then imagine a community. You respect yourself. You both teach younger people, and to change a person's mindset is very difficult. But the goal that at the end of it, the reward at the end of it is a lot better. So that difficulty that
I would even say, Waqas, that even for a moment, we're Muslims, we should never even say this, but I'm just saying it in a sense to kind of put this in to position what I'm going to say. Let's put the hereafter to one side. If say somebody's son gets shot, or somebody's son goes into jail for 10 years, how many people would that mother and father have dubbed in to avoid their son dying? 1,000 people. If you go up to the father, your lad gets shot, you've gone and seen your son's in hospital, he's died. Now go up to the father and say, right, brother, before this moment, you wouldn't want to dob anybody in because who snitches, why should I do it for nothing? Like, okay, now your son's dead. How many dealers would you like to dob in? He said, I would like to dob in 1,000, 10,000. And if all of them, and if I said, okay, I could get your son to come back to life, would you dob in every single dealer that you can come across? He would say, yes, if you can bring my son back to life, I will do that. So why are we waiting for that to happen?
That's the problem.
Why are you waiting for that problem to come to your house for you to do it? What were you waiting for? Do it before your son is on the ground, battered with metal bars. Do it before your son's shot dead. Do it before your daughter's been taken advantage of. Do it before your son's doing 10 years behind bars. Why are you waiting for it to happen to your house and then you're going to do it? Very careful. There's no difference.
I think so. We need to wrap up, guys. We're now. But one thing that I just want to add is, so if we leave it to the police, they don't have enough resources. Through no fault of their own, and they don't have the local knowledge that we have. All of us guys who live in our local community know the ins and outs of our community, how it works, and what the environment is like. Which the police just don't have the resources and the time to be able to get into the community in that same way. I know they do a lot of work with Molana Sajid and they do a lot of work with Mufti Amjad to liaise with the community, but they don't have the same link that we have. So if we're not going to help ourselves, we can't sit there and expect somebody else to help us. So it starts at home, and I think we put some practical things forward to try helping us. And I think it's one step at a time, and let's see where we can get to. Any parting words, Molana Sahib?
No, like I said to you, I think everybody just take their own responsibility. I think this day and age, if you could look after your own house, that's a big thing. So look after your own house, your own children, give them the best talim, tarbiyat, always be their best friend. So when they go through these changes in their lives, tell them, look, if you are in any trouble, come to me. Sometimes it could be just pocket money. Do you understand? As they're growing up, children need pocket money, and if you're not going to give it to them, they're going to get it from other people off the street. So, these are things that we need to be aware of. And so, main thing, responsibility of your own selves, your own house.
MashaAllah. Really good advice there, Molana Sahib. Mufti Sahib, any parting words from you?
Yeah, be the change that you want the world to see. At the moment we're doing a fundraiser, and in the fundraiser we're only asking for just £1. And alhamdulillah, we're getting people contributing, but not as many. However, we always blame the ummah. The ummah's not doing this, the ummah's not doing that, the ummah's like this, the ummah's like that. Wasn't it great, when we had Ya Allah. I forgot his name. Oh man. G? Molana Sajid, muted man. The one who recaptured the Beit al-Maqdis.
Salahuddin.
Salahuddin, yeah.
So,
where's our Salahuddin? Where's our, Muhammad al-Qasim? Where's our this? Where's our that? Yeah, you can't give £1 and you're waiting for Salahuddin who's going to conquer Beit al-Maqdis. Let's get for real, man. Be the change you want the ummah to become. You be that change. Then inshallah, kuch dekhenge.
MashaAllah, some really precious words there, Mufti Sahib. Dr. Sahib, any parting words from you?
The esteemed scholars spoke some beautiful words. I just want to spin off a little bit of what Mufti said at the end. Giving £1 in the path of Allah to an institute, the charity he's alluding to, and obviously the charity that the institution that Molana Sajid is also alluding to, is obviously a noble cause, is partaking in that thing that I want to make a positive change in my society. But we can draw even less from that. If we can't even do that, then the simple thing is everyone walks outside from their front door outside onto the street. So in front of their street, and this is in a city, Bradford, that we all live in, we can see rubbish, whether it's a drinks can or a takeaway box or those silver little canisters that people are getting high off. We see them dotted around. The least that I can do is pick up the rubbish in front of my home. That's the least I can do. And that shows some sort of character. Not just, I'm not picking anyone else's rubbish. It is essentially someone else's rubbish. I haven't thrown it there, but it's front of my home. It looks bad on my home. So the least I can do is not wait for the council to do this. And, it's alluding to the fact that we're trying to rely on the police to do things, trying to rely on the social service to do anything. We can do these little things. We can pick up that rubbish from that in front of my home. We can donate £1 to a good cause and hopefully ensure that it's going to make amends and be a positive influence on our children. And again, I've said this many times in the podcast that, and Mufti Sahib summed it up quite nicely in a saying, is that be the change that you wish to see in the people. So if I want my children to be on the straight and narrow, how am I on the straight and narrow? Am I actually being that representation that I want my children to be on? Am I the example that I want them to follow? If not, then fix myself up so that they can look at me and say, Bismillah, this is whom I want to be. I want to be like my father. I want to be like my mother. I want to be like my older brother. I want to be like my older cousin, uncle, and etc. etc. The moment we can take hold of responsibility, then inshallah our children will see that as well, and they'll have those instilled, and it'll be easier for them to go onto that path as opposed to something which is more dangerous or more lucrative or worthwhile. It's against Islam.
MashaAllah. So just plug some of the housekeeping stuff. So we are still raising money for Masjid Umar. So down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a couple of ways to donate. There's obviously the bank account, so you can do the direct transfer there. There's the GoFundMe page, which will go obviously to Masjid Umar, and you'll get that into the GoFundMe. Or there's the contact. If you have cash, you can connect to Brother Zulfikar, and he'll arrange to take the money off you there. Then obviously Mufti Sahib is also raising for the Olive Foundation. So if you search Olive Foundation or go to Mufti Sahib's Facebook, there'll be links there to donate. I think, especially in this lockdown where we're not going out and spending as much money on our day-to-day stuff, on our food and stuff, we have enough money to be able to do more than one cause. So, mashallah, I see on the GoFundMe that people who are repeatedly donating, and may Allah elevate their status in this world and the next. So we have the money. It's just having the heart. And I remember there was briefly before we leave, there was a scholar who came to Masjid Ummah once, and he sat on the member, and he made this beautiful analogy about donation, and he made the hand gesture of injection. And he said, you go to the doctor, you get the injection. You know that injection is good for you, and you know it's going to do you good, but you're fearful of the pain it's going to cause you at the time. And it's almost like giving something. You're like, oh, and in your heart, you're like, I want to hold on to this well. And I remember that analogy vividly as the Molana Sajid was giving it. And it's the same thing here. Giving might hurt at the time. And it might. You might say, actually, you know what? Can I afford that X amount of money? It might be £5 or the £1 that Mufti Sajid was alluding to here. It might hurt in your heart. But there's no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt in that it's going to do you good. And Molana said, and I think Molana said before as well, that it's not just in the hereafter, it's going to do you good. It's not going to make you poor here as well. Molana
me and Musa were good up because, mashallah, all the big earners, it's difficult for them to take our £10, and we on our low wages, we take our hundreds of pounds, So I think sometimes you need to look at reality and sometimes increase the mashallah, the big earners to, especially during these hard and difficult times, all the massages, all the madaris, whichever connections you have, please support them during this difficult time. And Mufti Sahibs and whichever your local masjid is, support them because they need your help during this difficult time. There's no Jummah funds coming in, there's no madrasa fees coming in, and the mosques still have to run. So, and they run by your support. And mashallah, our community, may Allah reward them. They always rise up to the occasion. Please, again, support all these, wherever they may be. Support your local masjids, your madrasas, your schools. Ameen.
Ameen.
Places, Sheikh, which will make that change that we spoke about. Because if they don't exist, then these little lights that we've got in these various parts of the city, even those lights will go out. Then it's each man for himself.
Wow, mashallah, powerful. And on that note, we will call the podcast there. Until tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.